Writing may not have been invented for stories. It may have been invented for tax. 5,000 years ago, in a city of mud walls and sun-baked streets, a farmer brings barley to the temple storehouse. Beside the granary stands a young scribe with a reed stylus and a soft clay tablet, still wet enough to remember every mark pressed into it. The official counts the sacks. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then he points at the tablet and says, "You still owe 2 more." The farmer frowns. "No," he says, "last moon I brought 2 sacks already." But there is no mark for those sacks, so they do not exist. In that moment, the farmer's memory loses to the state's record. There was no single inventor of tax, no one person sitting in a palace thinking, "What if everyone gave me barley?" Tax grew from something older and stranger. The moment settled human life became measurable. Before coins, before paychecks, before income tax, many early taxes were paid in grain, livestock, wool, labor, and time taken from your body. The state did not need your bank account. It needed your field, harvest, animals, and hands. That is the first thing modern tax makes us forget. Tax is older than money. Money came later because it was convenient. Early rulers did not need coins to build power. If they could take barley, they could feed workers. If they could take labor, they could dig canals and build walls. Farming made this possible. If you hunt, gather, move, forage, or live in small scattered groups, you are hard to tax. Your wealth moves with you. It rots, runs, hides, or disappears into the landscape. But a field sits still. Grain ripens on a schedule. It can be measured, stored, divided, transported, and guarded. To a hungry state, grain is almost perfect. Once a ruler can count your field, he can estimate your harvest. Once he can estimate your harvest, he can claim a share of it. And once he can write down what you owe, debt becomes stronger than memory. That is where the scribe enters the story. Not as a poet, not as a novelist, as a human spreadsheet with a reed stylus. Early writing in Mesopotamia was deeply tied to accounting. Goods, grain, rations, animals, workers, fields, deliveries, receipts. The first written marks were not all tax bills. History is messier than that. But they belonged to a world where institutions needed to remember more than memory could hold. Who delivered barley? How much of the harvest belonged somewhere else? Writing did not only describe power, it helped power travel. Because a demand can be argued with. It depends on memory, witnesses, and who can shout louder. But a record changes the room. The official can point to it. The scribe can copy it. The temple can store it. Your debt can outlive the conversation that created it. This is what bureaucracy does. It makes power durable. A king is only one body, but a state with scribes, measures, seals, surveyors, and ledgers can reach into places the king will never visit. It can know a village as numbers, a field as expected yield, and a person as an obligation. That is the strange magic of tax. It turns living things into categories. A field becomes an area. A harvest becomes a quota. A person becomes someone who owes. And once that happens, civilization gets bigger. Not necessarily better, bigger. Because taxes can do real things. They can fill granaries, maintain canals, feed workers, and coordinate labor no single family could manage. Tax can be the price of shared systems. But tax can also be the sound of domination learning to write neatly. The same granary that protects a city can feed an army. The same record that stores a delivery can expose a family to punishment. So the question was never only, do we need tax? It was always, who decides what is owed? who benefits, and what happens if you refuse. Because the moment tax exists, tax resistance exists too. People hide grain. They undercount animals. They bribe officials. They flee toward places where ledgers have trouble breathing. Power learns to count. People learn how not to be counted. So maybe tax was not invented the way a tool is invented. Maybe it emerged like a shadow from settled life itself. Plant fields, store grain, build a wall, dig a canal, appoint someone to guard the storehouse, appoint someone else to count what goes in. Then one day, a farmer arrives with 4 sacks of barley, and a person with a stylus says, "The record says 6. This is why tax still feels so strange today. It is not just the money. It is the feeling of being visible to a system too large to look in the eye. Measured, categorized, entered. The modern tax form and the ancient clay tablet are separated by thousands of years, but they share a quiet ancestor, the recorded obligation, a mark that says the world has counted you. The first taxpayer may not have understood writing, but he understood this. A person with a stylus could move grain without touching it. And that might be where the modern world began.